granite 660 feet over a lake. The sun is beating down on you, your calf muscles are burning, and your feet are cooking in your rubber climbing shoes. This was me on July 5th, 2012. I've been on a climbing team, I've been climbing for 6 years, and I was on a climbing team all throughout high school and through part of middle school. Tonight I'm going to be talking about basic things you need to know about climbing, how you can get involved in climbing. We don't have enough time to talk tonight about all the aspects, so I'm just going to talk about how you can get started. So I'm going to begin with talking about some basic climbing gear, which includes climbing shoes, harness, chalk bag, and a blade vise. Now most gyms that you go to provide rentals for all of these things, so if you go into like a local climbing gym just normally, you can just rent gear there. And climbing gear is generally pretty expensive, so you only really would buy gear once you've been into climbing for a little while. So I'm going to start talking about shoes. I don't have shoes here because mine smell kind of bad. So I have a picture of shoes. Climbing shoes, like I said, most gear is pretty expensive. So for a beginner, I would say finding a used pair of shoes is pretty good, or an inexpensive, comfortable pair. Climbers that just start climbing usually wear through shoes pretty quick because they're not experienced in like the technique of footwork and everything, so the rubber wears off pretty quick. Unlike shoes, a harness, you want to find a comfortable harness. This is my harness. I've had it for a couple of years. Harnesses last a while, so unlike shoes, which usually wear out pretty quick. So you want to find a comfortable harness, something that's got good support because you're wearing it a lot for climbing. Most harnesses cost around like $80 for a good one, and yeah. And then for a chalk bag, this is my chalk bag. Chalk is used when you're climbing. If your hands get sweaty, basically, and you're on the wall, it's hard to hold onto the wall if your hands are slippery. So a chalk bag is usually attached around your waist or up to the back of your harness, and you can reach in while you're climbing and then chalk up and then keep climbing. And then lastly, the main thing that you need is called a blade vise. So this is one kind of blade vise. It's called an ATC. I'm going to be talking about that on the next slide, about belaying. There's two main kinds of belay devices, ATCs, which is this one, and what's called a gree-gree. Now, the two devices, they're used in the same way. So with belaying, the person who is belaying, they're called the belayer. They're on one side of the rope, and the climber is on the other side of the rope. Basically, what the belayer does is as the climber is climbing, the belayer is taking slack out of the rope and feeding it through the device. And if the climber sits back on the rope, they're held in place where they are. And when the climber's ready to come down, the belayer will feed the slack back through the rope, lowering them down. The main difference between an ATC and a gree-gree is the ATC, if the climber's sitting on the rope and the belayer lets go of the rope, it's going to fly through the device and the climber's going to hit the ground. With a gree-gree, in order to lower them, you have to pull back a lever, and so it has this auto-locking device. If the lever's not pulled back, you're just going to stay in place, which is why a lot of gyms often use gree-grees with new climbers and new belayers. And ensures that extra safety. But with an ATC, ATCs are also cheaper. They cost around $15 to $20, whereas a gree-gree is about $100. And they're also lighter weight, so if you're climbing outside and you have a lot of gear, it's good to have something that weighs less. So next, I'm going to be talking about two basic kinds of climbing. Like I said, I don't have time to touch on all different kinds. So two main kinds that you'd find if you went into a climbing gym would be bouldering and top roping. So bouldering is basically climbing without any ropes. You don't go super high because you don't have any ropes on you. And so you usually have either mats or what's called a crash pad. In the picture on the left, that's someone bouldering outdoors, so that's a crash pad there. Basically that's to absorb the shock of your fall if you fall, so that you don't hurt yourself. And then also, depending on how high you're climbing when you're bouldering, you'll have someone called a spotter, which is in that lower right picture you can see. And the spotter is basically there not to catch them, but to guide your fall, if they were to fall, to make sure that they didn't land on their head or on their neck. And then the other type of climbing is what you would generally find if you go into a normal indoor climbing gym. It's called top rope, and you can see in the picture there's a climber on one end, the belayer on the other, and the rope is strung through what's called an anchor at the top of the wall. So if you were to walk into a climbing gym, that's what on almost all gyms you would see. In different kinds of climbing, it's not the case where the belayer and the climber are on different ends, but because I can't go into all those details, I'm not going to. And also, for starting out with climbing, this is generally what you'll see. You won't be introduced to any other types until further on, once you have more experience with top rope. So overall, those are the basic things you need to know. Like for me, I said I've been climbing for 6 years, and for me that started, I heard about a climbing gym locally, and I went in there one day, and I've been climbing ever since. So that concludes my presentation. Does anyone have any questions at all?